born at Solway, Minnesota, on the farm.
Okay.
And I went to school, to Solway School. Went through the 8th grade there, and only then I got home and I told the folks I was enough of that, so I went. A neighbor came over and asked my dad if I could go to work for him. So I did. I worked for him for a couple of years, and working on a farm out there, and he moved to town one winter, and him and his wife. And he told me when I had the chores done, have all the chores done, he says, I got some wood to cut out on the west end of there. So then I started cutting wood and had a big setting up and had a couple of neighbor boys, they come and sawed it up for us. And then I worked in a different places around there. I worked for another farmer, and then he had a sawmill down on Lake down Winnebagoes, and I worked down there with him for a while. And then I got back from there. I went out to North Dakota, Drayton, North Dakota. At that time I was about 21. I worked on the farm there until I got my greetings. And I said, I gotta go. So I got home and I got I forget the date, I went to Fort Snelling. And I passed it down there. Came home again, and a few days later, then I got called again, and so I went back there, and then was sent on down to Camp River, Oklahoma. And I was there for a while, and it was in 43 then, when I got the pass to come back home for 10 days on furlough. So then then we went down. No, I happened to see a guy that worked up here, lived up here north of Island Lake, Three Island Lake. And so he showed me a picture of a gal there. And I said, gee, I got to write to her. I said, the way she looked, I looked pretty good. So I wrote to her, and she wrote back to me. And when I got home on furlough, then I went to see her. We were together practically the whole time I was home. Then I went back and went on to Texas after that. And then, I forget all the details really. But anyway, we were doing a lot of hiking, and I was sick of hiking, so I signed up for truck driving. So they put me on the truck, and I went driving truck, and we went down into Louisiana and the swamps there and practiced there. Well, then from there on, we were back at camp, and then from there on we took a train and went to New York and took a roundabout trip to New York and got on the boat there and went to Africa, North Africa. Oran, Africa. We was there for a while amongst the worms and stuff that was around our tents.
Amongst the what?
Worms.
Where'd the worms come from?
I don't know, but there were all kinds of them. We had to put stuff around our tents to try to keep them out. So then at that time I got a touch of malaria, so they sent me into the hospital there, a big tent hospital. And I was there for a few days, and I had to say I felt pretty good, so I got my clothes were right there, so I got my clothes, and I told them I was on my way. I took off. I caught a ride back to camp, and the company commander asked me how I was, and I said, I feel fine. Well, he says, you go down the motor pool and waterproof your truck, he told me. So that I did. I went down the motor pool and worked on the truck. And a few days later, we convoyed to Algiers, Africa, and then they loaded the trucks on there and went to Naples, Italy. And we got into the harbor that night. That's where we caught Hail Columbia from the Jerry's. But we was, got off that boat and got on our trucks then after we got the trucks off and followed up through Italy and up to, going up to Casino, Italy.
What were you carrying in the trucks?
Well, at the trucks at the time, they were empty at the time, but we had, well, I hauled gasoline, I hauled gas, and I hauled, most of the time it was gasoline hauling to the company. I guess they went, I have to go back and haul and then deliver to the different companies. So, and then between times I'd haul food rations, clothing rations, and so I was on the truck most of the time. And one time at McNana, Italy, a couple of us, we went out for a load of gas in the morning. We were living in a stone building along the road there, and a motor pool was right across the road from us. And we went out that morning and talked to a guy that was in the same building as I was that morning. But that, about noon or so, we came back, and practically the whole front was out of the building. The big shell had come into one corner and took practically the whole front out. And so if I'd have been there then, I probably wouldn't have been sitting here talking today. But then, well, anyway, it did kill about 2 or 3 guys in the motor pool that same day. And well, anyway, I never heard or anything about this fellow until they found him in the medics. Medics had picked him up and they found him in the hospital about 3 days later. So, but I haven't heard or seen anything about him since. So, but then we went right on up through Italy and into France, into Germany.
Do you remember where you crossed over into Germany?
Well, we went over, well, I don't remember just where we crossed over, but we went over, we were at Heidelberg, Mannheim, Germany, and I hauled bridging timber and drove blackout night for hauling this and that. Hauled, in fact, when we was in Italy, I hauled, 3 of us went up one evening with demolition and ammunition and whatnot all up to near Casino, Italy. But we didn't stay there long. We got unloaded and headed back. But then we got into Germany. We were there for a while. That was in 43, 44 in Germany, more or less, in part of 45. And then well, I was busy on the truck every day. Come in one day with all single tires on my 6x6, 4 flat tires on it with shrapnel, you know. So that was the job for the motor pool guys to do, to fix them up again, replace the tires. Well, we was there for a while, and then there was about 3, 4 of us that hadn't had a pass to go any place. We'd been working all the time, so they gave us a pass and took us down to Dijon, France again for a little vacation. Well, then we went right out to the air base, and there happened to be that there was a couple of guys that were going up in the bomber that day. So we they asked us if we wanted to go on, and we said, sure, we'll go with you. So we crawled into that bomber, and I was curious to see what it looked like going up in the gunner's turret, and I crawled up in there and looked around, and we up for flying, and wasn't too long before the co-pilot called back, and he says the war was over. Well, that tickled me. I was tickled enough that I could jump, but that wouldn't help me much.
What kind of plane was it you were in?
Well, it was a bomber. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. It was a bomber anyway.
That's how you found out the war was over.
Yeah. That's why I found out the war was over. I was up in that bomber when the war ended. I'll never forget that either. So, And then after we got from, they came down and picked us up again down there at Qvern and took us back, and we weren't in camp there too long. They put us on train, I think it was on train, and went to England. I don't remember if we went on ship any place before we got on train.
And you ended up in England, right?
Went to England, yeah. And we got on the Queen Elizabeth, thank you, and came back to New York. And when I got back, we got back there, we came back, went by train to Camp McCoy, and then I stayed there a few days because I wanted to get some dental work done before I went home. So then I got home October 20th, 22nd, something like that. Of course, I knew my girlfriend was waiting for me at that time, so I went back out there, got her, and we brought her out to the farm. Then 3 days later, we came to Bemidji and bought the rings, and we got married a month later. That was Gloria and I.
Yep, yep.
You knew her.
Yep.
So then ever since that, why, I've been working at different deals, you know.
Well, weren't you a little concerned hauling gasoline that you might get hit with something and the truck would disappear?
What?
Weren't you concerned about the gasoline you were hauling getting hit by?
Well, yes, I
shell?
was, but I did see one truck that had been hit, same thing as what I was driving. I saw it in the distance, and I made a detour then. I didn't want to get anywhere near it. We saw one that was in flames. The same thing as 6x6 with a loaded, it's GI cans all they had on there.
Yep.
Loaded, and then on top of that be 2 tiers of them, and then oil and grease cans and stuff on top of that. So that was my main job, was hauling gasoline and delivering to the different companies around. 3 A, B, and C companies. A couple of our companies, though, they took them out on the infantry, put them in the infantry. I was in the headquarters supply of combat engineers at the time. So that's about it, I guess.
But you got to see a little bit of Italy and a little
I got
bit
to
of
see a little bit of each of them, and there wasn't too much good to see about any of them, the way they shot up, you know.
Did you see any of Germany besides the one place you went into? Did you go any place in
Well,
Germany?
in fact, I hauled one load of prisoners at one time, but that was all, just hauled one load of prisoners in.
Italian, German, what?
No German prisoners.
Okay. Hauled them to where?
Hauled them into some
Prison
place where they,
keep them.
into a pen somewhere.
You remember what country that was in?
It was in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Harold.
Yeah. But that's about, there was probably other things, I can't remember everything.